It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Oh yes, Mzansi, welcome back. This is your Feel Good Breakfast Show, opening up great conversations right here on S3. And we're talking about something that we all need to master, and that is our relationships. Now, our relationships are a reflection of ourselves and our lives, I think, and they bring about a sense of well-being, belonging, and more importantly, purpose. Now, to become a master in these complex connections, we need to understand the importance of self-reflection and growth. So here to unpack the topic is our big Flex panel. We've got life executive and positive intelligence coach Adriaan van der Walt, and then we have relationship coach Paulo Mendes in the building. Two absolutely incredible souls, perfect for the occasion. How are we doing this morning?
Great, thanks, Ralph.
I wanted to ask you this question about relationships, and I think in our day-to-day lives, they're quite important, but I'm going to throw a curveball here and first start off with why I think it's important to have a good relationship with ourselves. Oh, I think that's important, right? Why do you reiterate this? Or well, maybe you disagree with me, but why do you think this is of importance? Adriaan, maybe you look like you've got a lot to say on this point.
Well, yeah, I think, thanks for that question, Ralph. I think, and I really want to quote one of my all-time idols here, and that's RuPaul. And he says, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love someone else?
Preach!
and I think it's about that self-knowledge and that self-awareness. If I know what I want and what I need, it's easier for me to communicate that to the next person.
Of course, yeah.
It's easier to talk to other important relationships in my life and say, you know what, this is what I want and this is what I need. And then just have a complete acceptance of that and say, this is how I want to show up in life and this is how I'm going to do it. So please, love yourself first. And when you do that, you can then love the next person. If you're accepting of yourself, it's easier to accept other people. If you love yourself better, it's easier to love other people. And that's why it's important to have a good relationship with yourself.
Now it starts to make sense. Paulo, it obviously is something that we don't always find ourselves in. We don't always understand the love that we need for ourselves, right? How can we maybe incorporate more of that to get us to a point where we're comfortable with ourselves and further than comfortable finding better success in the relationships that we pursue as well?
Well, first, I want to acknowledge what Adriaan said, right? I mean, it has to start within us. I remember my old martial arts teacher saying, if there's no enemy within, the enemy outside is not a threat. So getting to know who we are, what are my likes, what are my dislikes, what are my beliefs, what are my values, that self-introspection, that pay attention to what I like, what I don't. What are the boundaries that I need to develop to relate better with others? Right? That empowers us to be best for ourselves and best for others. Sometimes culture can be so demanding. Yeah. And we're always trying to fit in. Adriaan, sorry, Afrikaans. Adriaan and I were chatting outside, and sometimes the expectation that, if I'm not liked, am I not good? Or if the person doesn't agree with me, does that mean I'm not good enough? And sometimes we have to step a little bit back, take a deep breath and say, you know what? Who am I? Am I being authentic to who I am? Then I can be a better version of myself to anybody in any situation.
Oh, I love that advice. And it's almost something that I think could roll over into the practical sense of how do we actually action this? And I think when it comes to both our personal and professional relationships in our lives, it's of utmost importance, I think, to create principles and sort of building blocks that maintain these relationships. You've mentioned some great points here already on how we can do that, but is it important for us to completely know ourselves when we are trying to build these relationships? Is it something that will definitely help, or are there other tips and tricks that could assist us in navigating and getting these relationships to where we want them to be?
Well, I think there's two that I want to highlight, and I think the first one that's so important is empathy.
Empathy. Can you explain empathy to me?
And I'm saying empathy many times because I think it's first empathy to ourselves, and then empathy to other people, and then empathy to the situation and the circumstances. We all come from somewhere. And we all are here, and some of that was not even our own doing, but we are showing up in the world a certain way. And empathy gives us that deep curiosity to go to the other person and say, you know what, I understand my world, and this is how it is. I want to understand your world and how it is. And once we have that curiosity and we have that empathy, you know, we can then just have a completely different relationship with ourselves and people. And the other thing I want to do is I want to change slightly the topic, and I want to call it healthier relationships.
Yes.
Because, you know, we are all, doesn't matter where we are in our relationship or where we are in our life, we can be healthier. And that year, if I can say it like that, is our invitation for growth. That is the space of encouragement, because if we are healthier, we can be healthier, and we can be healthier. And that is exactly what you have to do. You just got to be 1% better.
It's like a positive self-fulfilling
It's
prophecy.
a positive self-fulfilling
I
prophecy.
love that.
Beautiful
Yeah.
word. And the second one is briefly feedback. You know, we are in relationships with ourselves, with people in work, parents, if you have children. Be open with feedback, and you know, and accept it with a growth mindset. And if you have to give feedback, be kind. And if you do that, do it with discernment and not judgment. Because when we give feedback with discernment, that's the growth again.
Sure.
Which is, for me, the key to healthier relationships.
I'm here for the ears, man. We're talking about reflecting in oneself, and I think that's pretty important. It's worthwhile to reflect, and I think when you have this understanding, which we're highlighting now, it seems to make everything else so much easier in life. It seems to be able to improve so many other aspects of our lives. We were speaking about these relationships and making them healthier. Is it the same principle to apply a personal relationship and a professional relationship? Do we apply the same mechanics? Let's say in a workplace where I really want to impress my boss, I want to impress the co-workers I have around me. There's a level of how personal we can get with the relationships we have with them, right? But you mentioned something like empathy. Is that still a place is that still a space for it? Can we still apply empathy in a professional environment, and will it give us that ROI that we actually look for?
100%. 100%, because at the end of the day, it's about relationships, and it's just different levels of relationships. Like Adrian mentioned, parents and children. Sometimes at work, it's like we have those that we are parenting because they are younger, they more naive or more inexperienced, they need somebody to look up to. And we have those that we look up to in our work scenario environment, right? So relationships may change in terms of context, but the principles are the same. The principles are about understanding and transparency, authenticity, trust, communication, mutual respect. So I love that concept of healthier, because sometimes we get stuck on the idea that we need to be perfect, or others expect us to be perfect, or we put on ourselves the expectation of I cannot make a mistake. And when we have the freedom to be vulnerable in the right context, I can look at myself, the self-introspection, self-reflection, and say, okay, what are the triggers that are present here in this scenario? What kind of situations trigger me in a negative way? What kind of situations lead me to self-sabotage? What kind of scenarios make me feel insecure? And then I react, I lash out, right? So that self-reflection and that know of thyself, know the individual, will lead to stronger relationships at work, at family, couples, children, everyone.
Gentlemen, thank you so much again for this conversation. It's not stopping here, Mzansi. We are going to dive into another round of this in a bit. So if you have anything that you'd love to ask to this expert, esteemed panel over here, we're going to help this conversation get better, healthier, and of course, another round in just a bit. So for now, though, tuck away, and we'll get back to these gents in a moment.
You can make my day. It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Oh yes, Mzansi, as promised, opening up right here on S3. This is your feel-good breakfast show, and we are carrying on, like I promised, with an incredible conversation, something I think everybody should listen to right now. And we're back with our BIC Flex panel to continue the powerful discussion of mastering our relationships. And a reminder that joining us, we have life coach, life executive, and positive intelligence coach, Adrian van der Walt, as well as relationship coach, Paulo Mendez, in the building. Again, gentlemen, I love the conversation we were establishing about relationships, how important it is to not focus on the external, not compare ourselves to anybody else other than ourselves. And the big point that I noticed from that conversation was that we can just be better than we were yesterday, be better than the version of yourself before. And that already got me into a very excited way of thinking. I want to dive into the maybe flip side of this conversation where we're talking about relationships, we're talking about ourselves, and earlier we discussed how we need to know ourselves in order to then bring that truth into the relationship so that it's going to allow for growth, for magic, etc. But what happens if I know myself right now, but as I enter the relationship, I'm in a great relationship that allows for growth, and I start to grow as an individual within that relationships. That growth brings about change. Do I constantly converse about this, or do I go and have that change outside the relationship and then come back and say, hey, this is the new me 2.0, this is what I'm about now? How do we navigate this? Because it's a lot easier said than done, right?
Exactly. It is a lot easier said than done. And I think, whether we like it or not, and whether it's conscious or not, Raul, we all have an image of love in our head. And that image come with us from wherever, from, when we were small to where we are now. So what we then go and look for in the world is we kind of look for worthy individuals that's worthy of love to fit into that image. And then that's when you start getting the thing about, but this one's not ticking this box, this one is not ticking that box. But what growth and 2.0 means is that you move into a relationship and you want to be healthier in that relationship. You want to be happier. And what does that look like? What does that look like for me, and what does that look like for you? And how does that look like for us? If we have set out this goal of healthy and happier relationships, what does that look like? And then totally looking back on discernment and not judgment. When we look back in discernment, we look at something exactly as what they were, and we see what we can do better, what we can enhance, what should we let go of. But judgment is like, I'm a failure, I can't do this, I can't grow. Stop that. Go with discernment. Everybody has the ability to grow. And that should be the goal of any relationship, and especially with ourselves.
I love that. Maybe I can throw a curveball in here. Let's say you do go through these changes and you do bring it up in the relationship,
So
Paulo.
you're throwing the curveball to me.
Yeah, come on. Paulo's ready for it, man. I can see.
He gets the easy question. I get the curveball. Okay.
You can go, Paulo.
And I look, you both can jump on this one if you feel fit. But let's say that I do present these changes in the relationship and my partner then mentions to me that, hang on, you mentioned this at the start. Is it fair for them to keep me accountable to who I was in my past? Or should they be constantly looking towards a new version of myself? Paulo, you see, I knew you were ready for this one, man.
Teacher.
Because, this is the reality of the situation. A lot of us are going through these changes. A lot of us are judging each other and saying, hang on, but when you came to relationships, you said you'd never do that. So is this fair? How do we deal with this?
Change is inevitable, right? It's in nature, everything is growing or dying. So the healthier, better, happier, it's little changes every day. This is bound to happen. I think two principles are fundamental there. Think of a diamond. A diamond is a piece of chocolate that under tremendous pressure became a precious jewel. Right? But when you get a diamond, it's rough. Doesn't look anything special, or it's not particularly beautiful. It's the trimming, the edging, the sharpening that gives the diamond its value and beauty. So we come to the relationship with our 2.0 version. As the first segment, we were talking about the personal growth and loving ourselves. But it's in the relationship that we sharpen one another. And that is going to provoke changes. That is going to lead to transformation and growth. The key here then becomes, am I talking about perception or am I talking about perspective? Because my perception of you, it's what I want out of you and what I think you can give me. When I look at you from a different perspective, I can see you for who you are and what you bring to the relationship. What are your strengths rather than seeing your weaknesses because it's not what I wanted. So when we lead from having a perspective of the person that I'm in relationship with, rather than just my perception, which is an easier way to say my expectations, right?
Yeah. Absolutely love that. So I think it's really about oneself. If you could wrap this up into a small...
that good?
That was good,
Excellent,
yeah.
Paolo.
Paolo
Brilliant.
drops the mic right there.
Just like that.
If we could wrap this up into one sentence, and I know this is a tricky one because you have a plethora of words in which you could express this, but how would you encourage the individual out there right now to chase a better relationship with themselves, chase a better understanding of themselves and how they can bring that positivity back into relationship? How would you encourage them to do that?
It's going to be a long one sentence,
Okay.
Rael. I think what's very important for any individual is get your set of values. And once you have your set of values, let that become your compass. That is where you are trying to head to. And how are you going to get there? And you know, I do this thing in my practice where I say to my clients, just do a simple exercise. Reflect back in a year, in a month. And then you can say to yourself, my healthier relationship looks like this. There's things that I had to let go of. There's things that I had to enhance, you know, and it was all worth the while. And then when you do that, you will start seeing your values and get a little relationship compass. Head somewhere, head for healthier, and get there.
Oh, well, gentlemen, thank you so much. Adrian, you are a wealth of knowledge. Paolo, I tried every curveball I could, but you knocked it all out the park. So again, thank you for your wisdom.
It's easy with Adrian next to me.
No, I think between the two of you, you create such a beautiful balance. This
Diamonds.
is the perfect panel. Yes, these are the diamonds already shining through the rough. And I think with this relationship we've created, we've sharpened, we've brightened, and we've chased one step closer to brilliance. And I thank you for that, gentlemen. Mzansi, for you as well, there's something to obviously look forward to and get excited about, because you can choose your mastery conversation online and let us know how you aim to master yourself now for the relationship going forward. Until then, we want you to choose the hashtag Choose Your Mastery with BIC Flex 5 or Flex 5 Hybrid with movable blades for a faster, smoother, all-in-one shave. Thank you, gents. That was awesome.
Thanks.